वेलकम बैक टू पैनल डे सुपर हीरोज अहॉय। मेरा नाम है तुषार। तो आज रिव्यू करते हैं ही मैन मास्टर्स ऑफ द यूनिवर्स। So I was really excited for the He-Man Masters of the Universe movie. I think 4 5 months back when I saw the trailer, I knew that the sensibility looks nice and the production design looks great, budget looks great. Although I didn't know that how much it will do in terms of success at the box office, because He-Man ka appeal is only like for the 80s kids and probably 90s kids who like watched it again. So essentially He-Man ka filmation ka, there was an old cartoon that was in the early 80s, I think 81 to 83. Then 87 there was a movie made with Dolph Lundgren. um, then I think there was one more revival cartoon at around 2001, which I didn't see. Basically, this was done by Mattel to push their toy line. So after the success of Star Wars, there was a vote for coming up with these kind of characters in terms of toys. In order to sell these toys, they created this whole mythology around He-Man and created these mini comics. So there was around 51 mini comics in all, and this is the collected edition of those mini comics. I've covered this before, but obviously I'm reading it again now that the craze of the movie is going on. I also saw there is a small comics, तो ये कॉमिक वर्ल्ड आता था, कॉमिक डाइजेस्ट आता था डायमंड का, तो इसमें ही मैन की स्टोरी आती थी. Although now it's very tough for me to read, but it's still fun. I will show you some pages later on. So this He-Man movie is made by Amazon MGM. The MGM was the same company that made it in earlier also 87, but that was made very low budget, and in terms of story also most of it was spent on Earth instead of Eternia. This film is like some of the good points about it. Like I have a lot of notes, but some of the good points that I found was the length was very good, like 2 hours 20 minutes, and it spends good enough time between like establishing the character. So the original comics में Prince Adam का character से पहले came from a tribe. He-Man's inspiration was from like Conan the Barbarian. So he was shown to be like coming from barbarians before, but then he settles into Eternia और वैसे उसका establish किया गया था. There was no uh, like coherence to how the story progressed, but in this film you will not get the feeling of that. When you watch it, you will really feel like very well crafted story arc. तो इसमें story start करी गई है Earth से, in which Adam comes to Earth when he is probably 10 or 11. He is thrown to Earth when the Eternia is attacked by Skeletor and his army, and his father Randor and his mom, like they send him to Earth with the sword, a sword of power it's called, and then he falls to Earth, but he loses that sword, and he always has the memory of Eternia, so he keeps drawing sketches. So this I really like, and then they spend a good amount of time. So it's not like immediate jumps that happens in some of the Marvel movies, like they will show suddenly the character will go to the other realm and become a superhero, like Shang-Chi and some other films. Or is the one with which this film has the most resemblance. Thor Ragnarok specifically, but anyone who has enjoyed He-Man in their childhood will be able to appreciate it. There's a lot of nostalgia that is really celebrated in this film. So, in terms of short review, just go out there and enjoy He-Man and the Masters of the Universe. It's a celebration of 80s nostalgia, but it's also like a very entertaining movie. You don't need to know anything. He-Man is not that complex. It's just one character. It's like a fantasy world. So essentially, there is a castle, like Castle of Grayskull, that he and his friends are guarding, and Skeletor and his army keep on attacking that. And how they save the castle is pretty much every story of He-Man. You will have a lot of colorful characters from the mini comics and the 80s cartoon, which they have tried to celebrate here. Coming to some more aspects of the movie, they've obviously tried to base it in the current context. So there is some amount of current, like 20%, let's say, like current present day sensibilities or some wokeness that is there, which is okay. Like if you have to release anything in the present day, you have to present it with that. So I was fine with that because it didn't interfere with my viewing as an 80s kid. So Skeletor in this film comes very late, like I think almost 40 minutes late. Evil Lynn, Skeletor is played by Jared Leto, and Evil Lynn played by Alison Brie. While everyone is praising Jared Leto, I think Alison Brie also deserves a lot of praise. She's made the character very rich with her layered performance. Then you have Idris Elba as Man at Arms or Duncan. There's a character called Roboto. So this film is directed by Travis Knight, who has worked in stop motion animation and also directed Bumblebee. So he has that sensibility which he brings here. So Roboto is a character. So Man at Arms essentially is also the designs machine. So Roboto is created by Man at Arms, and they have a very nice dynamic. It will remind you of the MCU movies like Guardians or also Star Wars. Then you have Cringer, which becomes Battle Cat, but there's not much of Cringer in this movie. Adam's Earth persona, Adam. He's not Adam Devine, he's Adam Levine, I think. So he works in HR in a company, and it's really well created, and then like evolves into him going into Eternia, and even after he goes into Eternia, he's Adam. So they take that goofiness in terms of his character on Earth, which I thought was pretty nice. There is other things teased in the end. I'm really hoping a sequel does come through. There is, I think the film has done just quarter business so far of its cost, and things are not looking good. So go out there and watch it. And one of the reason I'm making this review, I don't think He-Man needs a review, but I'm just doing that so that if new people who don't know about He-Man just go out there and watch it, and in IMAX if possible. And if this film is a success, there's a lot more properties that the films will obviously be made, but they will, more importantly, they'll come to the theater, like Shira, which could be a sequel to this. Then Voltron. Voltron is coming direct to OTT, which is sad. Like Voltron is being made with Henry Cavill. Then Thundercats, Silverhawks. This film is quite similar to the Dungeons and Dragons movies, which had come a few years back. Another major part of the film is this. Another strength of the film is this music by Daniel Pemberton, but also help from Brian May from Queen. So there's a lot of guitar shredding. It feels like a rock concert happening, and it's really fun for people who've enjoyed films like the earlier He-Man or Flash Gordon or Highlander. Highlander's song "Princess of the Universe" also features in a very fun sequence. So then there is also many things to explore in He-Man, like Skeletor, Hordak, Keldor, Randor, which I think will come into play in the second movie if it gets made. There's a lot of Thor Ragnarok connections. I will cover some of the aspects I from the comics. So there is in this book there is around 70 stories. So obviously I have not read all of them. It's around 1200 pages. I've read like 300, 400 pages or so, but I'm really in the nice mood to read a lot of these mini stories, watching a lot of videos, some research and everything. All in all, it's a really fun film, fun fantasy world, but also like the kind of things you go to MCU movies for. MCU films are not fun any longer because of different reasons, but the kind of joy you got while seeing the first Thor movie, or that whole Shang-Chi, Doctor Strange kind of thing, you will get here, but also with an added uh, a bonus of like a lot of good music, and the cast is really good. There's not a single aspect which I didn't like here. It was a great time at the movies, and I liked that the length was long, so it was like it had that weirdness. So 80s films used to have that awkwardness and weird phases in between. This has that. So it's a great time of the movies. He-Man and the Masters of Universe. It's two thumbs up from me. Okay, now for some comic book connections of this film. So, the new He-Man movie is around 2 hours long. So obviously you can't have so many characters, but very briefly, like He-Man has three, four friends, like who constitute masters of the universe, and Skeletor has again those sidekicks. Mainly, there are three or four: Triclops, Trapjaw, Beastman, uh, Evelyn. So these are the ones that are skeletal side, but we call them minions. And then there is like a lot of characters. So most He-Man stories in the mini comics used to follow this format, that there will be some threat to the castle Grayskull, and He-Man and his like friends, they will fight that thing. and it will deal typically with like fantasy spells, like sometimes it goes crazy. So it's really good that I have gotten back to reading this book, and I'm happy to say I've covered almost like 60-70% of the entire collection thanks to the movie's release. But what I was saying was that you can't have all the characters in the film, but they have done a very good job. Like you have like Ram Man, Triclops, Trapjaw. So I just wanted to show you some of these stories. So there is an interesting thing that Travis Knight has done. He has done Roboto in a very cool way. So there is a cool dynamic between Man at Arms, Duncan, and Roboto. And there is also a comic book that is there for Roboto. Let me search that. So this is the one called Battle of Roboto. In this one, they introduce Roboto and say that Man and Arms has created this thing, and it's really well written. Like all the films in the 80s, like they're very prophetic. They are even like even for Hindi comics, it's true. Like you would see things that you will be like wondering how did they think of that, because that same thing will be true. And there is this very cool like Judwa kind of robots, like twin robots here that are on Skeletor's side, and they are called Too Bad. So that is the humor of He-Man for you. So Too Bad somehow influenced Roboto to attack He-Man side itself. So then it's a very cool like attack of the robots, and then they reverse the spell. And I really like this panel here. Then I wanted to show you Triclops, like the terror of Triclops. So Triclops, the character is not used much in the movie, but it's a very cool character. It can see through walls of Grayskull, and it's used as the prime kind of force of Skeletor to attack Grayskull, He-Man, and his group. So this is another comics here. And the funny thing in these stories or the animation cartoon used to be like. The character names would be called out, so because it was meant for kids, there is all the things that are done to make it more kid friendly, and they can like later play with these stories. So like the dialogue is very straightforward. There is no like hidden layering or subtext, so it's like hey, there is a talent out there, so those kind of things. And then there is a very interesting concept of these fighters. So there is two of them. One is Point Red and one is Talon Fighter, and one is this one called Zor. So Zor is this Falcon Fighter. So there is two, three of these aircrafts that you see in classic He-Man. Another important part of this lore of these stories were dragons. So dragons are not much explored. Obviously, you can't do too much in the first film, but these are like some of these cool dragon stories that you see, and that is like pure fantasy genre that they catch in that. So this is called a gift, and there is for like finding one power, they need to travel to this dragon land, Grenimir's lair, and Grenimir the dragon asks them to kill this cut this tree and bring it back. So they meet like lot of monsters and dragons on the way, and when they approach the sky tree, there is a very cool lesson here that we cannot sacrifice you to the Granamere swim. So it's like the kind of effect these stories would have on kids. And then obviously, like it happens that it was a test for them, and then they're able to come out of that. So the main challenge that they face here is that Man at Arms is frozen. So these were small stories with quick moral lessons, and that's what's been covered. Another aspect of these mini comics is that there is different variants. So this collection starts with this variant, which is just like a picture book. So there will be an action scene and some story accompaniment here. I think I got like some of them. Uh, I really can't remember what type of mini comics I had, but this is the classic format, like 2 panel and 3 panel here that we used to get in the mini comics. And then obviously it evolved through the years. So there is a lot of interviews here, and later on there is different phrases. So all the comics used to accompany the different phases of these He-Man appearances, like in the toy line or the TV shows or the movies. So there is a entire section for Shira. So Shira film came out in the 80s as well, and there is a Netflix cartoon that came, animation that came in 2017, but it's been taken off due to rights, so it didn't really belong to, I think, Netflix. So unfortunately, that is not there to watch. But towards the end, I really like these modern age kind of comics. So personally, I'm not very fond of like the DC He-Man comics. I really love the older classic stuff which comes out on Dark Horse. But yeah, I somehow can't seem to enjoy the new format. This is He-Man: The New Adventure. So this is the complete like Judge Dredd 80s science fiction Star Wars style, and it's pretty cool. So I plan to cover this actually, and if I can find the accompanying animation, I'll do that. So I was talking about DC. So these were the comics, I think, done by Tim Seeley in 2002, and these are completely your modern day comic style, like lot of anime manga kind of art and colors are there. So this is about He-Man's comic collection. I have a lot to talk, but can't cover everything. But I would say this mini comics collection is excellent if you want to get into He-Man. And there's also some unpublished material. I'll put links to some other videos that I've been enjoying on this movie. There is a very cool video done by Emergency Awesome. So do check that out. Finally, for the few pages of this Hindi comic, so this is Comic Digest He-Man. It's barely readable. It's called Billiyo Ki Bhidan, Battle of Cats. I'll try to see if I can find this, but it's not, I don't think it's there in the mini comics compilation. So the art is still looking great, but the like lettering is very small for me. So yeah, that's about it. Go out there and enjoy the He-Man movie and enjoy He-Man comics. Thank you for watching. I have the power.